Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to another Thirsty Thursday live stream. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about careers, certifications, so much stuff. And I have an awesome guest. So I want to bring him in. His name is Shawn. He can introduce himself and we'll go from there. And again, if you guys have any questions for either of us, just throw it in the chat. I'll get to it whenever I can. And obviously be respectful. So let's bring him in. Hey, what's up, Shawn?
Hey, Pat.
How's it going?
Thank you for having me, buddy.
No, likewise. Super stoked about tonight. I know we've been trying to get on this for a minute, so I'm glad I was able to take some time out of your busy day and busy evening to jump on for an hour or so. So for those folks that don't know who Shawn is, if you can elaborate who you are, what you're about, and what you've been up to.
Sure. Well, my name is Shawn. You already gave that secret up. I am a web application, I would say for the most part, web application penetration tester, but I dabble in, like you do when you work somewhere, you kind of get sucked into other things. So I dabble in web application security in general, we'll call that.
Okay, cool. So, in one sec. Seems like your internet is a little choppy. I'm not sure what happened.
Uh-oh.
It just seems a little. I'm not sure what. It seems like it's really your network connection is really low. I'm not sure. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe it's. I'm not sure if it's my browser, but it's. It just seems like on yours says network connections really 1 out of 10. If you look on the left hand side.
Yeah, I see it. I don't know.
Are you on Wi-Fi or are you hardwired?
No, hardwired. Hopefully it corrects itself because
yeah,
we're at the wrong spot of the show to troubleshoot.
Exactly. Yeah, it's going back up. So maybe it was just a little latency and stuff. So yeah, that's dip. Yep. So yeah, that's awesome. So as far as like web application security, web pen testing, all that stuff, like what made you decide to get in or to do more like the web app stuff instead of like the infrastructure, like the traditional? Did you work inside of web development prior, or what really made that transfer?
So my background is probably a little unique compared to most people that you talk about or talk to. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have much of a outside of like a hobby. I didn't have much of a tech background before this.
Mm-hmm.
When I first started a couple years ago getting into penetration testing, I was really network focused.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't actually web app focused.
Okay.
And there's two things that kind of helped me make that shift. A lot of people that I respected, would recommend to me that web app is a nice way to get your foot in the door somewhere because it's more in demand,
Mm-hmm.
and usually an easier barrier to entry than trying to jump straight into internal, external, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And there's other things like IoT or hardware that are kind of like in demand just because nobody else does them.
Mm-hmm.
But I ended up having a web app opportunity come up, and from there that's kind of what shifted my focus. It was kind of like more of an opportunity thing than I was kind of like, I won't say lost, but just kind of like dabbling in everything, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And at the time, I was chasing like network certifications, like the PMPT or PJPT or whatever. But just honestly, the opportunity to get my foot in the door somewhere is what pushed me to web app. And doing that, I actually figured out I really enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
It is just so deep, and there's so much to learn that I wouldn't want to step away from it anytime soon. Even though I still play with other things, I get on HackTheBox like the rest of us or whatever, and
Mm-hmm.
do other things that interest me. But as far as career wise, it's probably going to be web app security for a while.
Nice. And I have to salute you for that because like right now going through some, I do web testing. I don't, I talk about that. I don't do it. I suck at it. And I guess because of my personal interest, right? Like you said, like if you're interested in it, you're going to pick it up quicker. You're going to be intrigued. Like the network stuff is way more intriguing to me. And the external, internal Wi-Fi, all that social engineering. I love social engineering stuff, the phishing stuff.
Yep.
Like web app was always like, oh, I'll have to do it if I have to do it. Not like, oh, let's go learn about cross-site scripting or SQL injection and doing all that stuff.
Yeah.
But like some of the exams that, out there, even if it's network related, not so much like the TCM stuff, but for example, the HackTheBox CPTS, you had to do some SQL injection. You had to do DORA. You had to do some of these things to even, leverage. And it's interesting because I recently took that exam and I was really surprised. I'm like, because I thought it was going to, me personally, for anyone that's watching, I really thought it was going to be like the PMPT plus a little OSCP equals CPTS, right?
Yeah.
That's in my mind what I envisioned, even after going through like the penetration testing career path, because you have to take that whole path before you even get the voucher. And I had a rude awakening. I was like, oh shit, like this is a lot of information. Is all this stuff going to be on? And literally I had 220 pages of notes for that exam. So the exam is no joke. And we'll maybe touch a little more on it later on. But as far as, awesome. Hey, what's up? So as far as like doing, like you did your PJPT, PMPT, and all that good stuff. So did you find like, okay, like someone's really junior, like you came from a non-technical, like a non-traditional route, getting into those certifications, doing the training, did you find it easy for you to find the job? Because, maybe there's people out there that are looking for a job and we both do mentoring on Hack Smarter with those folks. And we get the questions all the time. Like, I have this certification, I have that certification. I submit my resume to 6,000 places and I get one phone call and not really an interview. Right. So on your path, since you got like your PJPT, PMPT, some of, whatever other ones you got, did that give you that upper hand or that leverage to get where you are today?
So I think this is going to be a long answer because it's really like a culmination of things and a culmination of efforts. So we can just for context, we can lay out how like non-tech my background is. I was in management for if I tell you how many years, you'll get to guess how old I am. I mean, maybe by the gray in the beard you can guess that, but I was in management for about almost 20 years, managing car washes actually.
Nice.
Starting with like small crews at smaller stores and kind of working my way up to managing a couple locations, and that actually helped. Just all that interaction with people, leadership, customer service, that actually helps a lot. So it is easy to leverage other backgrounds, the skills gained in other backgrounds. But I decided that a couple of years ago I was going to go all in on this, and I knew it wasn't going to be easy. It had to be, I had to get a degree. And a lot of people say you don't, and personally I think I did, because I wasn't interested in like a help desk type role. And if you have any chance of skipping that, it's probably not going to happen without a degree. There's a lot of federal jobs and stuff out there that require a degree. There's no way around that. There are some certifications that are required. The knowledge gained from those certifications definitely helped, but it really was. Of course, you have to have the knowledge. You can't go into a job and not know what you're doing. It's not going to work. You can't go into an interview not knowing what you're talking about. It's gonna be next. It's going in the garbage. But so the technical skills had to be there, but then the biggest thing was actually networking, making friends in the industry to where I could actually get my resume to the top of the pile.
Yep. Yeah, so that's all really, really good stuff, right? So I think that's amazing because people, like, there's other folks out there. You said a really, really good point, like a good friend or someone in the community named Kevin or KevTech, right? So Kevin worked in restaurants. He worked in, the NYPD, and he did some other stuff, and then he got into IT. So he leveraged that like customer service and all that, information that he gathered and learned talking to people, because he's more on the support side. So it's like, you can't really escape that, right? You have, if you're not good with people,
Yeah.
you're going to have really a hard time. And I wanted to touch on a point that you just said, like if you, pretty much practice what you preach with your resume, right? Because if you don't really know what you're talking about, they're going to say next. So how important, because I hear so many things and I scout the internet. I'm on the DL, but I see what's going on out there. I'm like Eminem, right? He just blasts, he puts out a new song. He just like scouts all the new rappers and whoever's dissing him, then he goes fucking ham, right?
Yeah.
So like, how important do you think it is, for someone that's new to the industry, semi-new, like to put what you really know and not sugarcoat and not like fluff your resume? For an example, if you did one WordPress hack and you ran, on Mr. Robot or something like that, you ran WP scan one time in your life and you put, I can hack WordPress sites. But then if we talk about how do you enumerate, how can you see, outdated themes or plugins or whatever, and you're like, oh shit, I don't know.
Yeah.
So how important it is, like for your resume equals pretty much what you know.
I definitely would agree. Like if it's on your resume, you should be pretty comfortable talking about it. And if you're not, leave it off. If it's something you just touched one time. Now there's some, I would probably say there's some obscure tools and pen testing tools that maybe you could get away with that. Like, do you know how to run a Nessa scan? Sure. Yeah, I do. Like,
Yeah.
But the scenario you brought up, like I would say leave it off. And a lot of people overdo the resume anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Like a page or two is perfect of like bullet points and summing things up, but talk about it. We'll talk about it in the interview. They're not reading a 10-page resume.
Exactly. And that's such a fair point because, and there's other, other type interviews that they'll ask you, and this is something like I've been on both sides, right? I interviewed folks and this is the way I would do it. I would always interview folks with, their resume. And if they don't have something on their resume, I'm not going to ask them about it. Right.
Yeah.
If they're, when I was more of a network engineer, I interviewed more people when I was before cyber. Like that's where I was in management. I was more, interviewing and bringing people on for system engineers and CCIEs and all that, the network engineers guys. And if they say, if they don't have EIGRP on their resume, they say they touched layer 2 or VLANs, and that we're not going to talk about routing if you never routed before. So it's just like interesting because I had an interview and I always make this joke and it's still true to this day. If you do a Control F and SQLI on my resume, you won't find anything, right? Like you won't. And
that's fair.
Yeah. Like I know it. I know what SQL injections are. I can perform some of them, but I can't really get deep in. I'm not a web app guy, right? Just like maybe yourself, even though, and correct me if I'm wrong, I can be totally in left field right now, but like you did the PMPT, you did the PJPT. So you probably had to run Responder. You had to run some of these tools. But if someone asks you, okay, something that you don't really do every day, you may like fumble with it. It's like, oh, I would have to think for a second. It doesn't just roll off the top of the dome like that.
Yeah. And I would also add, pay attention to the job posting. Or the requirements that are posted with the job, because that's also fair game. That might not be on your resume, but they might ask you about that stuff, and that's where a little bit of I hate to call it social engineering, or like you said, how important communication is. But I mean, you can brush up on some things real quick. Pay attention to the cues you're being given.
Exactly. Just for an example, I want to try to keep it as vague as possible about the exam I just took, but maybe I'll shut up. I'm not going to even talk about because I have to read what I can say and what I can't say. So, but for an example, like if there's an exam out there, just say ABC certification, and you were given something with I don't know, API hacking or something like that. You had to compromise an API key and, blah, blah, blah. I don't know, this is me. If I seen it and I had to like do my research to get through that little piece to get past that, I'm not going to say I'm an API hacker, like on my resume. Like that's just me. I'm not going to be like, oh, I know how to hack APIs now because I was able to find something in a Git repository or whatever the hell the case may be.
Yeah.
That's just me. And I don't know, maybe I'm just like very like focused on what I really know really well. And that's what I talk about. And that's,
I agree. For the most part, agree with that. I mean, if it's something that you're pretty familiar with, and you have a little bit of room to include it, I think you can word it correctly to where you're familiar with APIs or something like that. You know what I mean? But to just put something on there that you have, a day's worth of experience with, no, that's probably not a great idea.
Yeah, exactly.
Go get the experience though. There's nothing stopping you. There's so many free resources out there nowadays that like, look at what's trending in the industry that you're applying for and start learning this stuff. There's really nothing stopping you.
Exactly. And I wanted to ask, I don't know if we touched on this, if we did, sorry, but like what exactly pursued you to get into cyber? Like, why did you go from, management and what like tickled your interest in to get into this world?
So, this is actually kind of a funny story. This guy's telling me to wake up. Get out of here. I got little eyes. Leave me alone.
Yeah, I'm the same
way. It's the Eastern European. So being in management, I'm working with IT people. I really always wanted to do it, but I was making good money. You get comfortable in what you're doing.
Absolutely.
But there comes a point in your life where you're like, so I was like, I got to go back to school. I got to start at the bottom, all this stuff. But you get to a point in your life like where, I want to spend the rest of my life doing something that I actually want to do.
Yep.
And not just chasing the paycheck. Of course, a paycheck is important. We all need to, support our families and whatever. But I decided just, it was like, I'm almost out of the blue. Like, yeah, I'm just going to go after this. And so I kind of started looking into networking. I really didn't know what I wanted to do, but I kept kind of seeing what everybody was probably seeing a couple years ago, all these advertisements for the, cybersecurity boot camps and, cybersecurity is the next big thing. And I would just thought, all right, I'll look into it. Starting to look into it, I kind of realized like the boot camps and stuff weren't the way to go. At least I did good enough for myself to realize that was probably a waste of time and money.
Yep.
But I got playing around on things like Try Hack Me, and I was just like, I can really get paid to do this. Like, so it just kind of started as a hobby like that. And then once I started getting really serious, that's when I was like, all right, I got to get a degree. Of course I don't have to do anything, but I'm going to get a degree. I'm going to do whatever I can to make myself stand out and make this happen. And, within a couple of years I was able to make it happen. So it can, I know it's not easy, but it can be done.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And how long have you been in the game now?
Almost 8 months.
So that's pretty sick. You know what I mean? So what certifications? I know you have PJPT, PMPT.
I had a ridiculous amount of certifications from WGU. Actually, I don't know if you're familiar with the WGU degree program, but
yeah, I have my master's from there.
So every single CompTIA cert you can imagine, SSC, CP, the Linux foundations from
LPIC one,
LPI. Yeah. So I had a bunch of certifications. And that helped because especially when you're looking at like government jobs, government contracting jobs, there's certain ones you have to have. You can't get away without having like a security plus, a pen test plus, a CYSA plus. It's just a federal contract requirement. So they're not even going to consider your resume without it. But I knew that I didn't want to do, blue team stuff. I'm not knocking anybody who does it. I'm not saying it's not enjoyable. I just knew that it wasn't what I wanted to do. I'm not like into the research. I'm not into the like GRC. None of those really like did it for me the way offensive security did it for me. So knowing that that was what I wanted to do, I spent, the moment I graduated, I didn't stop working for a minute, is when I started working on the TCM search, starting with the PJPT, knocked that out within like a couple months of starting to like really study for it. And then immediately started studying for the PNPT.
Yep.
But then that web app offer came in and completely switched gears at that point.
And that's sick. So that's super, super. I like to hear these stories because other people might have doubts in themselves, like, okay, I'm X amount years old. I've lived my life and I've been electrician for 20 years and fuck, I don't know if I can do anything else. I'm an old man now, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I like that you're like a, walking example of it. And it's like, it can be done. Yeah. It's going to be hard because.
And to be honest, I want to be honest with the time commitment that it is to make it happen. It was work from 8:30 to 6:30, come home, maybe have dinner, get a quick workout in or something. And then you're working on something until 1 a.m. and then doing it over again every single day. And then on a weekend, you're spending your entire day working towards something. But, it's a short-term sacrifice.
Yeah. And that's really good to bring up because I remember like studying for, even some other certifications outside of cyber. It's like, it is a commitment. And even for an example, you did PMPT, that's 5 days that you just have to focus, right? Yeah. Especially if someone maybe being a little newer. So maybe like, okay, 5 days, I don't know how long it took you to do it, but it's like, okay, maybe you needed those full 5 days, or maybe you only need 3 days or 2.
I think I had it in 3.
And that is fucking sick, dude. Like for someone that 8 months ago, nearly, last Christmas, you were fucking, hanging out in a car wash. And today
I was actually doing pest control at that time. There's a whole other story on how that happened, but I did end up working in pest control. I was working in pest control for about the entire 2 years that I was studying to get into cyber. I was actually doing pest control.
But the moral of the story is like last year you weren't doing this, and today you have, a degree and several certifications, and you're not 16 that you have all the time in the world. You have, seems like you have your life, your family, and everything. So it's definitely a time commitment, and I'm in the same boat. Like even right now for the CPTS, right? You have 10 days to do it, and it's like, and it's like, man, we have 10 days. It's a long exam. And so that's time away from, your family or whatever, because you're dedicated to learning. And after the exam or whatever, after you get done with work and like, okay, like I found this new exploit, or this new vulnerability that we, you're working on your team. It's like, oh, I don't really understand that. But now I have to go after work. You said, get a little bite, get a quick workout. Now, let me get really my head around what that vulnerability is about. So let's look into it more and just understand it more. So it's like, and just like how this guy said, like cyber is a lifestyle. It's definitely like you have to keep on learning. And I just feel like some people out there, there's a lot of people, but we talked about that offline. But like, it's just like, now I want to transition into more of the, practice what you preach, right? And I just feel, how do you feel about like, we talked about Discord servers, you talk about this, and some people like yourself, right? Or maybe even more junior than you, someone that's, a younger person, or even our age. I don't know how old you are, but like, our age.
I'm 41.
But, yeah, I'm 38. So like, coming into the game, like I know, like if I started, and I probably going to make a video about this because people ask me that all the time, like if you would start today all over, how would you approach it? And obviously when I started, we had physical machines. There was no virtual machines back then. Like, and so going on like, Discord servers or LinkedIn or all this stuff, and it's like misleading information. right? You're like, I'm new. I don't know who to trust. I don't know who to believe or what's really true or not. So someone that's been in the game for, nearly a year, what has been your biggest hurdle, and how can we like help the community land into a positive environment versus these fucking trolls that I want to whack in the mouth, you know?
I mean, so personally, I think my biggest hurdle was probably myself. And I
Mm-hmm.
mean that in like that, it's that imposter syndrome that everybody faces.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you think you need to know everything all the time, or you can't make a mistake. And honestly, most of the time, that's just not true. Like, there's people on your team that you can ask. There's friends you can ask, and don't get confused and think that they know everything too, because they don't. Like, I mean, I'll give you my team for instance. I'm on a team of about 7 people. Some are really good at coding. Some are really good at like Active Directory environments. Some are really good at web app. Some are really good at like front end coding. Like, there's just different things that, different strengths that your team has. So the biggest hurdle, I think, is probably like that. Well, I don't know enough to try yet. Like, I don't know. I need to be right all the time. I'm going to embarrass myself or whatever. Like, you have to fight that.
Yeah.
And before we get too far away from, how you brought up the discords and stuff, I don't think that's a bad idea. Some of my best friends I've made right now,
Mm-hmm.
are from Discord and LinkedIn. I come from an area where cybersecurity really isn't that big,
Mm-hmm.
and there's not a lot of opportunities to meet people unless I travel a few hours, like, out to Boston or New York City.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, being able to network with people on Discord and LinkedIn, it was a blessing. You just got to be very choosy about who you really follow, really connect with,
Mm-hmm.
who you build those real friendships with. Like, if you're observant and you sit back and you watch and you hang out in a community for long enough, you know who the jokers are, you know who the kids are. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
just have to start using your best judgment when you're
Mm-hmm.
figuring out who to listen to. LinkedIn is a scary one because there are plenty of jokers out there on LinkedIn, and you think it'd be, you think I'd be saying Discord is a place for that, but there's these people that are just like influencers and nothing else.
Yeah.
Fine to be an influencer, but there's a few of them out there that if you watch long enough, they're talking a talk that they can't walk.
Yeah. So obviously we don't have to bring up names. So like,
No.
what is some things like that? That's really, really interesting. And I want to segue into that. And, and just like myself, I want to speak for me. I don't like the word like me. I'm not. I'm just making videos, and if it reaches you and it helps you in any way, kudos. If not, fucking skip it. I don't give a fuck. Whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I'm still living my life. I still got all the things I want. If you watch
Yeah.
my video or not, I don't give a fuck. So my like for those people that really, really want to help, because I had an interesting thing, because I never want to feel as though I'm nobody. I'm just a guppy in the sea that makes videos, and I try to answer as many people as I can. I don't have a team. It's just InfoSec Pat. It's just me. You know what I mean? Like, and so like every single person, if I answer you on LinkedIn or on YouTube or on Instagram or on Twitter, that's all me. You know what I mean? So, and I probably, and this is what, we were going back just before the live, like going live. It's like, that's why I had to like move into like some kind of paid thing. Like, if you really want to talk and get to, have something, like I was literally answering probably 500 messages a day.
Yeah.
Literally, like, even if it's like, oh, try hack me, and then move into HackTheBox. If that's that sentence, I'll type, I'll write it out and send it. So like
you do get a lot of those too.
Yeah. And, or like, if they ask like, oh, obviously the silly ones I ignore, how do you hack your girlfriend's Facebook or whatever. But, like, but, Yeah. So going back to the influencers thing, like I think you really have to be careful. And, I remember coming up, like it's been several years now and probably 12 years now. But like I remember getting into this world, not cyber, into the content creation, right?
Mhm.
And no joke, what are we in 2024? I made this channel in 2020. I think 4 years. It's almost 4 years now.
Yep.
And I didn't know anything, right? I didn't know what to use. I didn't know. So I reached out to some folks, right? And was left unread. You know what I mean? And it was like a sour taste because it's like, yo, like you think you're fucking better? You know what I mean? Like, who do you think you are? And until this
I had a few.
day,
Yep.
yeah. And the funny thing is one person, and I always say his name because I love the guy. It's like a big uncle to me. Like the one person I like looked up to, I learned so much from. Like if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have probably 80% of the knowledge I have. Is Keith Barker from CBT Nuggets.
Yep.
So I just hit him up on LinkedIn one day. I was like, hey man, I love your videos on CBT Nuggets. Like, what do you use to edit?
Yeah.
Literally an hour later, he gives me his phone number, says, give me a call and I can walk you through it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, fuck, this is like, my Henrik Lundqvist. You know what I mean? Because I'm a ranger. Yeah, I'm like, holy shit, this guy really is like, I'm like, oh shit, like literally have like the fanboy.
Now.
Yeah, I'm like this. I was fanboying to the fullest. And then like other people that I would like, hey, like I just I enjoy your channel. I love what you do. I just want to start like making videos. Like, what kind of mic or how do you use OBS Studio? I didn't even know what the fuck OBS Studio was. I'm like, what do you use? And so the moral of it, like, I try to be as friendly, as giving as possible. So going back, I know we're skipping conclusions, but like going back to the whole influencer on the internet, obviously you have to be careful. And like you said, really, really do your job. So where do you think people fall short in that world? Like we don't have to bring up names, but like, okay, like I'm brand new. I'm listening to Shawn Pat talk tonight.
Mm-hmm.
How do I know who to really be on the lookout for? Like what red flags? I'm like, oh shit, son, I need to fucking stay away from that guy or that girl, whatever. Like, how do I look out for that?
It's a little bit hard to pass that judgment because if the person, their content is providing you some value, then it's providing you some value. Like I think it's just as you go and you watch people and it's like, well, do they actually do the thing? Are they're telling me they can help me do this thing? Do they actually do the thing?
Mm-hmm.
You're telling me you can get me into this industry. Do you actually work in this industry? Or are you just like, a bad car salesman on LinkedIn trying to sell whatever? Like, so it might take a little bit of time to, weed that out. But also, it's hard for me to pass judgment because if you're taking, something from that person's content and they're putting it out there for free, then, I let them be. But I think as you move on, you kind of like outgrow certain people and you're like, all right, I don't think I was really getting much from them, but like there's this guy on LinkedIn who is a pen tester where I want to work. And he puts out these cool technical articles, every now and then. I'm going to pay more attention to his stuff. You know what I mean? Like, so that's a really hard judgment for me to, I try not to knock anybody for what they're doing, but
yeah. No, but me either. I'm the same way. Like I never judge anyone. But obviously, like if someone's fibbing on the internet and trying to, like you said, a bad salesman or car salesman, it's like, it's definitely a good thing for the newcomers because I would never want to steer someone in the wrong way.
Yeah.
And that's why even like the course I just put out, right? I put that out because everyone asked me for a course and I'm like, okay, like, and this is one thing I want to say this fucking live because I got this question plenty of times. And I guess since it just crossed my mind, like if you think about a medical field, right? You're a doctor or a lawyer. When they went to law school at, I don't know, NYU, if someone went to law school at Nova or UM, they're all studying law, right? the end result is to get a law degree and learn the law. So is UM stealing content from NYU? No, it's the same fucking thing, the same direction that you have to get to the end result, which is get your past your bar or whatever. So I don't know, like I was getting questions like, are you doing the same exact thing as someone else? You know, and no, what I did was take everything I learned over the last couple of years and like from all my videos I put out, everything that I actually done in the last few years and put it into one centralized place and have more of a structure. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it's like, it was just really weird. It's like, I'm selling Jordans and Bob Sneaker Corner is selling Jordans down the block. It's like, them boys are like not allowed to do that because I'm fucking selling J's. You know what I mean? It's like,
so the hard thing there is like, if you're, it's hard because if you're doing coursework for anything, it's like, well, the material is kind of all the same because it's the same information. So I guess if people don't like it, they don't pay for it. That's all it is.
Exactly. Like if you go to, I don't know if it's TCM or if it's HackTheBox or if it's what is like even EJPT, right? Mm-hmm. PMPT, PJPT, they all have like the same kinds, you know, of course.
If you're teaching somebody to learn, you know, use Burp Suite, you're teaching somebody to learn Burp Suite is kind of the same.
Exactly.
So that's a hard one. But if you don't, I guess if you don't like it, don't buy it.
Yeah, exactly. And it was just like weird because I was getting like feedback. Oh, you were biting this person, you were biting that person. I'm like, I wasn't fucking biting no one. You know what I mean? Like they didn't invent it. You know what I mean? Like everyone's doing the same shit. You know what I mean? Everyone's just trying to make their thing. And I just made what I put out for years and just put it in a structure. You know what I mean? Like that's all I did. And like you said, like if you don't want it, don't fucking buy it. You know what I mean? It's like that. Yeah. I don't know. I just wanted to make that clear because I was getting so much. I probably got like, I don't know, 6 or 7 comments. I delete them. So if you put a comment and you're talking shit, you're getting deleted. You know what I mean? I don't accept your comment on YouTube anyway. So no one's going to ever see it unless I accept it. So,
you know, the one thing I can say that I thought of it now that, you know, we were talking about the LinkedIn influencers or whatever. If there's anybody watching this that's brand new, one thing I'd say to look out for is like, you know, I don't know if this is as popular as it used to be when a couple years when I first started out, but this used to be a popular thing of posting these challenges where you're going to do like, you know, this guy's 90 days of cyber or whatever. And you're kind of like dabbling in a certain subject every day or whatever. That's probably not going to help you get a job. Like you're focus on the thing that you want to do. I don't think that's deceitful. I think it could cause somebody to waste a lot of time, but like, I think you should really focus on the area that you want to be in and, you know, put a lot of work into that. If you're jumping from subject to subject every day, it's, you know, like I said, if they're not charging you for it, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's probably just going to end up wasting a lot of your time.
Yeah. And that's just exactly what I do. You know what I mean? And that's the same advice. Like even if someone's, you know, from Hack Smarter, or if someone talks to me on privately or whatever, like I always just say, like, don't try to know it all. You know what I mean? Because
you can't.
Like, and I don't even try anymore. Like I just stay in my own path and get really good at what I'm doing. And like, I don't try to do, you know, try to be some API hacker or some web app or guy.
Or get overload.
Yeah. I'll just stay in my lane. I like internals. I like externals. I like social engineering. And, you know, going back, I do like blue teaming. I look at, you know, I enjoy that because it's coming from like a network system engineer. So I understand the whole concept of like looking at logs and, you know, it was a little different. My thing was troubleshooting logs, but now it's like, okay, like now we can look at, you know, the defense aspect. So I do enjoy that. I think,
I'll leave that to you. I don't think that's my thing.
Yeah. I guess I enjoy it. Like, and I'm even probably going to put like a little, I don't know if it's going to be a paid course or like more of like a beginner level, like SOC. And I already have something on YouTube about it. Like with Alien Vault, but like a little more like with maybe Waza, and like a little more setup. Like, I don't know. But like the defensive aspect is so much more in detail and setups and like looking at law. Like, it's so much more to the whole course structure than just like doing an offensive security, because it's like, oh, I'm just hacking a box, throw up.
And it's a completely different set of tools to learn.
Exactly. Totally. What time is it? So you have like 20 minutes. So
we had a question earlier that I wanted to answer before I forget, because it's kind of like drifting away in the comments there.
Yeah.
TLS had asked about the study group coming up. I guess some people here might know that I did a like a PMPT study group for a long time. We're going to be doing one for the PWPT. But I don't have an exact date. The only thing I can say is it's probably going to be the middle of October, but it should be a weekly format like the one that I used to do. And hopefully if it works out, we have some pretty good guests that you'll recognize once they're announced.
Cool.
So if web hacking is your jam, that'll be coming up.
That's cool, because I have the voucher for that, and and the funny thing is, I was like, should I do the junior one first, like do the PWJT or whatever, like the junior.
I actually am doing that one first, and I I started going through the course material. And it was like, yeah, this really is junior. So I'm not going to bother doing a study group for it. Like, I could probably, I'm still going to do my due diligence and go through the course material, because I don't care who you are. You pick something up from anything. Like, you'll see something that you might be a senior level, web app pen tester. You go through that junior course, there's probably something in there that, I didn't know that could do that. I didn't know that trick. So,
yeah,
I'm still going to do my due diligence and go through the coursework, but I'm assuming it's going to be a pretty easy cert to.
Cool. And that's one thing. That was one I was thinking of, because I already have the voucher for the mid-level one, the practical web pen tester.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, like, am I quote unquote good enough? Like, do I know enough to say, screw it, let me do that? And if anyone's out there has taken both TCM and maybe CBBH, because CBBH, or the bug bounty hunter for HackTheBox, I actually went through all their training, all the coursework, and I really found it really, really good, and it was well put together, and I learned so much. Like, and I'm not a web app guy, and doing some web app, being on some web apps and web app tests, and I'm like, okay, like, I definitely need to brush up on XYZ, and there's definitely some interesting stuff. So if there's anyone out there that actually did the TCM one and the CBBH, like, which one was, I guess, easier or harder? And if you have any feedback on each one, that'll be awesome. I would love to hear someone's feedback on that, because
I haven't taken it yet, but I've been told by people who did take both that the CBBH is not tremendously harder than the PWPT, but significantly harder. And that's kind of HackTheBox's game, is like, you gotta they like to try throwing curveballs at you. You really got to know that material. I think they make it a little more difficult on purpose.
Yeah, and that's so true, because like I said, I'm going through the CPTS. I got 13 flags, and that was probably the hardest exam that I ever taken. And even like on a real pen test aren't even that hard. You know what I mean? Like, this thing, like you said, they throw you curveballs. They just like want to go, go through loops, and it was really fun experience. Like I learned so much, and it was just like, I'm just over that fucking thing. But yeah, it's definitely it was a long game, and now we just have to wait till my my video comes out when I talk about my exam experience. But
good stuff.
Yeah, that's really good to know that, because I definitely want to do the CBBH as well. And I think I know people watch my shit, and like, you know, I've said this many times, and I say this just because it's the God honest truth. Like, I do these certifications to give information out to the community, right?
Yep.
Like, I don't do it me personally. Like, I'm not like, oh, I need to go get this CPTS because I need to make more money, or I need to do this because of this. Like, I'm just doing it because I want to learn more and be able to provide the information and provide guidance to others that want to get into the field, and I can have, you know, better guidance for them instead of like, oh, I need to have all these certifications to get more money, because it's not about that. It's more about, and I was getting like slack for that or shit for it, like on Discord. It's like, oh, just want to do this because you want to make a video. It's like, yeah, like I don't. It's not my fault that you're broke as fuck and you need, you know, like it's not my fault the way you know. It's like, don't blame me for your shit, you know, like it's not my fault.
Don't feed the trolls, buddy. That's all.
Yeah, and that's a problem, dude. Like I get worked up with them, like I really, really do, and I let it get to me. Everyone tells me, like, dude, like even the like folks at like Red Sea, like everyone's like, just leave it. But I guess it just hits me because it's like, if I'm just asking a simple question, I just want a simple answer. I don't want to fucking the runaround. But yeah, I guess these kids are just retarded. But yeah, like let's see, what other? I had a few more. So like, and you did mention, you know, Hack the Box, and you know, you do your study groups and everything. So like, what like a central like skill set, practical, hands-on, are needed to be focused on for someone that's brand new? Like, do you know, recommend like home labs? Do you say, okay, go to Hack the Box, try Hack Me? What is like normally like your guidance for people that you mentor and, you know, give
I
give
would
the community?
say it really depends on where you are.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't know the basics, you're going to struggle a little bit more than if you do. So I don't, I guess let's talk in a context of somebody completely brand new like me from another, industry, or, somebody just coming out of college,
Mm-hmm.
or, somebody teenage thinking about what they want to do. Learn networking first, learn a little bit about hardware, and you're probably going to be working in a Windows environment. um i don't think I don't necessarily know if you have to get the certifications, but just learning the material that you learn in like the A plus and a network plus, and you can watch those videos for free, like
Mm-hmm.
even before you start jumping into the pen testing work, it's pretty valuable. And I think some kind of a home lab experience is also more valuable than you could imagine, just because, and I think your brain tends to pick up things, when you're not just reading about them, but you're actually putting hands on and doing something. And there's plenty of guides out there. My friend Ben has a great guide that I don't know where I could post it here, but it's about setting up like a Proxmox home lab. And there's
Mm-hmm.
just so much to learn, like just doing that with networking and, setting up the firewall and the segmentation. It,
Mm-hmm.
it, it all of those things are valuable. But I would also like to say that in my first interviews, and even when I'm talking with people in a work setting right now, I always get the "you communicate really well" comment,
Mm-hmm.
because I think that most people, they expect the IT guy to be like kind of socially awkward. So I think that one of the biggest things you can work on if you're a younger person or just somebody trying to get into the industry is those just it's kind of like, I hate to say this because it sounds like, devious, but your everyday interactions are kind of like social engineering.
Mm-hmm.
It goes a long way if you can come across really well in an interview, or you're talking to coworkers. I think the technical stuff is like more overstressed than some of these people need to put some time into the soft skills too.
Yeah, no, I'm totally there with you, because like I was the total opposite. I was always not really great at talking because, you know, I always make a joke like New Yorkers don't really talk that well, but you know, like especially the city kids, you know, like but like, but it's like a catch 22. Like we're really good at, you know, like talking, and that's why I like social engineering, because, you know, like growing up the way we grew up, or at least that way I grew up, is like connivers, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so like, it's easy to be like doing my thing and like getting what we want, you know, and like being a conniver.
Right.
Or a skeezer, or whatever you want to call them. But like,
I'm from New York also. Everybody in the audience might not know all these words.
yeah, that's true too. Yeah. Yeah. And it's definitely like a lingo that we just talk, you know, like maybe like, what the fuck is a conniver or a schema? You know what I mean? Or a get over or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's what really, really is like, okay, like it's easy to talk and like, oh, like this bullshit, shoot the shit, you know? But
And I'm not saying, everybody go out there and learn how to scam your way to a job, but if you learn how to communicate, it really goes a long way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not about like lying. I'm not saying about lying, but I think it's just about like getting what you want is the main thing. Like you want to get into it, so like do whatever you need to do to hustle your way in. You know what I mean?
And not just that, like once you're in, you're going to be talking to clients.
Exactly.
It's not like HackTheBox. You're not sitting behind a screen and submitting flags. Unfortunately, many of us would probably like to do that for a living, but you're going to have to go to the developer meetings. You're going to have to go to the kickoff meetings. You're going to have to talk to clients. You're going to have to talk to the point of contact during the pen test. Those are things you need to take into consideration.
Yeah, no, most definitely. We have a few more minutes. I think info said you should start a training education platform that offers CompTIA certifications for free, paid for by advert placed in the courses.
I don't know. Professor Messer's kind of got a lock on that already.
Yeah,
I don't know if that would.
Yeah,
I don't know if that would go too far.
Yeah, I'll keep Professor Messer on that.
That guy's amazing. Honestly, the amount of content he puts out for free is pretty remarkable.
Yeah. Like I'm not competing with that guy. That guy had that shit on lock. Let's see what other. I'm just trying to go through these before we call it wrap it up. I found it best if you set up a virtual lab and hack yourself. Yep, absolutely.
I agree with that to an extent. If you're just setting up a lab and banging on it and you're stuck, you're not really learning anything.
Yeah.
There's a time and place. There's learning that needs to be done, and there's that try hard that needs to be done. So you got to find a balance.
Yeah, most definitely. So beginners get Cali Purple with Cali everything. Me, I always been a fan, like this is like what I do in the real world. Like obviously for my videos, it's just easier just to have Cali, right? But like if you have like your own system, install like Ubuntu and install the tools that you use. I don't know, like Cali is good for like when you don't have to think, right? Like when you just like, it's already there. Like it has a lot of, I don't like to say bloatware. It's like saying, oh, go buy a Dell with every single application installed on it. Like, why do that? Why not only install like your Office, your Brave browser, your whatever you're going to use, and then why are you going to have all these other tools on there when you're never going to use them? And if you need to get them, you just do app install, right? Like just install it whenever you need it instead of just having all this. So that would be my advice there. Was there a beginner of the first? Oh, that's all for you. This one, I'm not sure if you answered that. Was there? Were we there?
Oh, he was there for the beginning of the study group. Yeah, I had a few people that rocked out through the PJPT, the PMP. I did a couple study groups before I. That was before I had a job, and I did this every day. And I didn't want to stress streaming every week, but I'm going to be getting back into it just because I do enjoy the streaming. I enjoy working together with people.
Yeah. No, and that's definitely so cool, right? Like getting a group of friends and like you and your peeps to get it on the box or whatever, doing some stuff together. And even like the certification, like even when I was going through the pro labs, I felt like, having a group of us, like, because, and you mentioned something obviously when you said your team, right? So like you're a really good web app, maybe the next person's really good at AD or internals, Wi-Fi, etc. Like, so like when you're doing these CTFs all together, and I asked like Tiberius, I asked a few people because just until like 6 months ago, right? Before that, I was like, oh shit, like, am I allowed to like ask a friend, like, hey, you want to jump on and do a CTF together? Like, because I don't read rules. I'm gonna be honest. I never go and read shit. Like, that's not me. I'm not gonna do it, and I'm not doing it. Sorry. I don't give a fuck. Like, I'm not gonna go read if I can and cannot do it. So I'm like, I would just go, for an example, the Pro Labs, right? I remember I'm like, oh, maybe I can do like a video series of like Dante and cybernetics. I'm like, this would be fucking cool. Like, this is really good because I did all of them, right? All the way to APT labs. And I'm like, this would be really, really good. And I didn't see anyone walking through any of them. I'm like, so, is that like, I guess it's a no-no. So I'm like, I'll just talk about it after the fact,
That is a no-no.
But
I actually asked HackTheBox if I could do walkthroughs for the Academy material. Because I do like doing walkthrough videos occasionally, and they shut them down.
Really?
Yeah, because it's paid content. People have to pay.
Yeah, I guess fair enough. Yeah, but like, where does it say that? If you never asked them, did they ever say that you can't?
So I actually did find it somewhere, and you actually had to work to find it. So
okay,
it's not super obvious, but yes,
gotcha.
I did end up finding it somewhere.
Yeah, if it's not in plain sight, I'm not finding it.
Same thing when I was doing the TCM study groups. I never ever put their material on my stream. It was always, let's go do this free HackTheBox that's like the material, or we're learning about hacking Active Directory. I have a friend who is an Active Directory wizard. I'm going to invite him in to talk about some things that are in a course material. I try to stay away from, putting anything out there that was going to get me in trouble or get my videos taken down. Or
yeah, I guess that's definitely fair. Like, that's something I wouldn't do that either. Like, with the Academy stuff, I knew that was probably like a big no-no. But like with the with the Pro Labs, I'm like, oh. And then like once I started, I think I looked for like a walkthrough. Like once I was done with Dante, I'm like, oh, like let me see if there's a walkthrough on Dante, because that's the main one. That's when everyone knows. And there was nothing. I'm like, oh, I guess like we can't really do this.
Yep. And it's behind a paywall, I guess,
Yeah, and it makes sense. It makes sense.
It does.
Yeah. So that's why, like, even, I just like doing like now it's like the review videos, I think is super cool for me, because I'm like, oh, at least I can talk about my experience. And, if you're interested in doing, I don't know, say Dante or offshore or whatever, like, be prepared to learn how to use Sliver or C2 or Mythic or whatever, because you're going to be doing this. And just walk through what I did, because it literally shows you, like, if you go on there, it shows you what you're going to end up, what skill set you're going to need. And I'm like, okay, like, you need to learn Active Directory. All right. So we can please be proficient with NetExec and understand with Bloodhound and understand, this, that, and the other, and the tools that I use during that engagement or during that box or whatever.
Drop clues. Don't give away the content. Drop clues.
Exactly. And that's for anyone out there that's, looking to make videos on this. But we're going to be wrapping up. So Shawn, obviously, thank you so much. So any last words of wisdom for the newbies and for the, the folks out there that are watching? What is your last advice to them?
I'd say work harder, because if you're using social media or you're playing video games and then you tell me you can't put in enough time to break into cybersecurity, I think you just lied to me. I don't want to sound too hardcore, but short-term sacrifice, a lot of people don't understand that.
Yeah, no, and that's facts. That's why this is my last thing. That's why my goal was before October, because hockey season starts in almost a month. Preseason starts in 3 weeks. So my goal was to get all this, all the Pro Labs, CPTS, and CBBH before hockey season starts. So it's like, because once that starts, I'm with those, like, hockey's number one. Hockey will always be, family's number one, but I'm like, hockey comes way before cybersecurity for me.
You got to enjoy life too, you can't be all serious.
Yep. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much, dude. And maybe I'll jump into your study group when you start that. I'll hit you up and you just let me know. Good. And obviously if it's the same exact time as this, it's gonna be difficult, but we'll definitely try to make some stuff happen. And I really appreciate you and what you're doing and keep killing it, dude. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Appreciate you having me on.